Good morning, security gang, and welcome back to the CyberHub Podcast, Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. We're back in the studio today and grateful because I have my double espresso, and boy, did I miss it. Like, I really, really missed it. By the way, I had Tim Hortons espresso yesterday. That's an abomination. I mean, an abomination to call that an espresso. It was an absolute abomination. Just gonna put that out there. Tim Hortons, not an espresso. Just putting it out there. Sorry to all of my Canadian friends. Sorry for all the Timmy fans out there. Not an espresso. For those tuning in this morning, my name is James Azar. I'm the host. I'm also a chief information security officer by trade. And so I'm not some marketing guy, some news guy. I'm an actual cybersecurity practitioner, giving you my view and what you need to know about what's happening in the news of cybersecurity. On today's show, Microsoft shipping fixes for 30 days. SAP and Adobe drop major patch bundles. Fortinet is warning of a FortiCloud SSO authentication bypass. Ivanti EPM gets a critical RCE, beware. And also geopolitics meet cyber, from Seoul seizures to UK sanctions. Let's get into all of that on this morning's show, because yesterday was a day that was crazy because it was Patch Tuesday. But before we do that, I need to fuel myself up for this morning's show. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. I have to do two in the mornings. I don't do one the day before. That's only right, I think. Well, let's move to the most sadistic Tuesday of the month, Patch Tuesday, where Microsoft patching only 57 vulnerabilities, 3 of them 0 days. The December updates close 57 CVs across Windows, Office, Edge, Chromium, and developer components, with 3 actively exploited 0 days of privilege escalation and browser smart screen style chains commonly targeted for Microsoft. The exploited 0 day of the 3 is CV 2025-62221, has a CVSS score of 7.8, and it's a use after free issue in the Windows Cloud Files mini filter driver. So there's that. 2 updates drew attention to command injection, leading to remote code execution in the Copilot for JetBrains, that's CV 2025-64671, and PowerShell 2025-54100. So all of those have now been patched up. Make sure you get your Microsoft environment done, because you could be looking at drive-by, post-compromise, privilege escalation. If you don't, you could be looking at increased risk to help desk or even jump hosts. So you want to patch all your Windows rings, prioritize the 0 day KBs, enable ASR rules and smart screen, hunt for new local admins, and suspicious token manipulation around the patch window would go a long way to do just that. We'll move to SAP releasing its December security update, patching 3 critical vulnerabilities across multiple products. SAP's monthly release includes 3 critical issues affecting components such as NetWeaver, Soulman, and Business Objects class services. So some of those are remote code execution and authentication, SSRF types of risks, depending on the module you're using. Again, ERP finance, data exposure risks is significant. The most severe is CVE 2025-42880. It's a code injection problem. The SAP Solution Manager ST720 with a CVSS score of 9.9. So you want to make sure you get these patched up. And obviously, you see here multiple 9.6 and a 9.1. 9.6 is CV 2025-55754. That's the SAP Commerce Cloud flaw. And then CV 2025-42928, a deserialization vulnerability impacting SAP JConnect. That's a CVSS score of 9.1. So make sure you do that. Again, ERP and finance data exposure, job chain tampering, and even identity pivots via SAP IDP ties. Apply to SAP hotfixes, restrict management endpoints by IP, enable EDR and app servers, monitor for unusual RFC calls, and background job edits, as well as any sort of mass data exports. You should be monitoring for those irregardless to this activity, but this activity only heightens the alertness of your hunters in your environment. Adobe patching 140 vulnerabilities. Security updates land for Acrobat, Reader, Substance Tools, Premiere, After Effects, and Experience Cloud components. Multiple critical code execution bugs were fixed in the Adobe suite. So again, if you have creative heavy teams, you want to make sure you get this patched up ASAP. You really don't have a lot of time. Adobe has yet to really be at the front of it, but it's definitely abused in the chain. And so just because we don't see it starting in Adobe doesn't mean Adobe isn't a a pivoting ground for threat actors trying to take advantage of it. And again, and Adobe is one of the easier tools to update. Really, when you look at their creative suite, you just roll it out and you're pretty much set. It's not as complex as others. We'll move to FortiCloud FortiCare SSL login authentication bypass. This is a critical vulnerability coming from Fortinet, warning of flaws that enable authentication bypass in FortiCloud SSO login flows that affects FortiCloud's managed tenants and linked services. This one is significant. There's two security flaws that are being exploited. CVEs 2025 59718. That's the FortiOS, FortiProxy, and FortiSwitch Manager, and 597 19er. That's the FortiWeb, by using improper verification of cryptographic signature weakness in vulnerable products through a maliciously crafted SAML message. So you want to make sure you get this done. If you can't patch this up, you should go to System and Settings and switch Allow Administrative Login using FortiCloud SSO to off, or you can run the following command from the command line interface if that makes life easier for you there. Again, ton of business impact with this one. You could be looking at tenant takeover and even device enrollment abuse, config theft, and even swap out of security policies. For right now, apply the fixed builds, enforce SSO with phishing resistant MFA, as we've always said here on the show, and then remove public management where possible. Hunt for unexpected new admins and API tokens, as well as any sort of policy drift that exists there. Let's move to Ivanti, warning of a critical vulnerability in their endpoint manager there. And remember, China loves Ivanti. I mean, the Chinese are revved up, ready to go. A newly disclosed flaw in Ivanti's EPM allows remote code execution on management servers, often with high privilege. Ivanti is already issuing a patch for this one. This is CVE 2025-10573. The flaw would be exploited by remote unauthenticated threat actors to execute arbitrary JavaScript code through low complexity cross-site scripting attacks that require user interaction. Rapid7 explaining this one is pretty actually simple to execute in most cases. Again, you're looking at full estate control via software distribution, script execution, and even credential harvesting. Patch, upgrade, or restrict EPM counsel, API by IP or VPN, rotate service credentials, and review recent software jobs for rogue scripts. Again, or just, don't use Ivanti. That's also an option. We literally, every time we have an Ivanti store, we go back and we look, and they're the most covered company on our show, and not because we have a thing for Ivanti. I've never used them. I don't know who they are. I have no quarrel with anyone there outside of the fact that they're constantly on the list. So there's that. Okay, let's continue with a Seoul cyber investigation into Kaopang, now leading the Korean police to seize data and devices. Korean authorities seized company systems, data tied to the high-profile probe. Details are limited while the case is developing, but according to folks in Korea, South Korean police on Tuesday raided the headquarters of the company's largest online retailer as part of an investigation into the business. Recently disclosed data breach. Cyber investigator from the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency have now seized devices and data from the company's headquarters in order to find evidence covering how the breach took place. The police previously announced that they believe they have identified the perpetrator, described as a Chinese former employee who has since left the country based on data voluntarily provided by Kaopang. It may be that Kaopang doesn't want to collaborate or cooperate with the South Korean police. And so now they're exercising this. And that's a very, very dangerous precedent, by the way. In cyber and business, the government's role is to build trust and allow to work with it. If they believe that Kaopang was complicit in the breach, that's something completely different, but they should be transparent with the public over that, because right now this gives an uneasy feeling. Again, legal and op disruption. They're looking at potential downtime of services and even dev pipelines based on this raid. And there'll likely be a lot of regulatory pressure coming their way. So again, something significant there for Kaopang, who are going through a breach and now are having to deal with the government. And again, I don't know the full story here, so I'm not going to say they're victims of a breach, but were they complicit in trying to hide the breach from the authorities? as the authorities were trying to investigate. And again, an insider threat is what it looks like to be there. That insider threat moved back to their country of origin, which again, like serious insider risk issues there. Storm 0249er ramps ransomware activity reporting is showing that the actor is expanding intrusion and exfil as well as encryption cycles, mixing phishing with edge device exploits and living off the land tooling, targeting manufacturing and services business. This actor is been shifting from an initial access broker to a combination of domain spoofing, DLL sideloading, and even PowerShell execution. It's a moniker, Storm 0249er is a moniker assigned by Microsoft, but now they've really kind of evolved, and they've been using ClickFix and so many others as well. So something to keep in mind here and update your hunting teams on. That would go a really, really long way to help do that. All right, let's move to this one. The Australia social media ban rule takes effect. The effect essentially says after today, well, it's already today in Australia, it's end of the day in Australia, the new national rule that curbs certain social media content sharing behavior and even opening accounts took place. Anyone under the age of 16 can technically not have any social media. So, you know, what kids are going to do? They're going to go outside, ride their bikes, and play catch again. Nope. They're going to find a way to get on social media. I don't understand the logic behind this outside of just a bunch of like old boomers in the Australian like house and government going like, yeah, we should totally do this and we'll enforce it on the companies. And you're like, really? How's this going to work? Because you're not punishing the parents or the kids if they violate this. You're going after the companies, which seems like a money grab, because how do you expect the companies to do that? And how are they going to pick up on this compliance requirement that absolutely makes no sense? Because if someone lies on their age, someone lies on their age. I don't know what's happening in Australia, folks. Beautiful, beautiful place, but I don't know what's happening. I really don't know. So this is going to impact platform operations and moderation APIs. Some of these, they say this is, they updated a Online Safety Act of 2021. This passed in November of 24 with overwhelming support. The law already faces a legal challenge from the Digital Freedom Project, and Reddit may file a challenge too. The ban impacts Facebook, Instagram, Kick, Reddit, Snapchat, Threads, TikTok, Twitch, X, and YouTube. X has not yet communicated its policy to the government as of yesterday. Again, Elon Musk at the forefront of just saying, like, that's kind of overreach. Like, here's the thing. You can't ban kids from being on social media. What you could do is force parental consent. That's one way. Limit dangerous content. So hold the platforms to the fact that maybe someone under the age of 16 shouldn't see violent content, drug content, and so forth on their device. But a complete ban and thinking that's going to hold. But my guess of this actually holding up is zero. It's just my guess. And I'm no genius here, but this isn't going to really be enforceable in any sort of way. They're going to fine social media companies 50 million if they're in violation. 50 million Australian dollars. We'll see. I don't know. Just, yeah. Okay, let's move to this one. UK is sanctioning Russian and Chinese firms over information warfare roles. The UK sanctioned entities tied to disinformation operations. Disinformation and operations support restricting financial and technology dealings with those organizations coming from China and Russia. Two China-based firms, iSoon and Integrity Technology Group, will also sanctioned for their vast and indiscriminate cyber activities against the UK and its allies. In Russia, there's the Center for Geopolitical Expertise. Sorry, hang on. Let me see here. Hang on. Let's find the Russian companies that were sanctioned. I believe it's UK was imposing sanctions on the Telegram channel Rybar and its owner Mikhail Sergeyevich Zivnachek and the Foundation for the Support and Protection of the Rights of Compatriots Living Abroad. I love that. So also described by Estonian intelligence as a front for the GRU spy agency and the Center for Geopolitical Expertise. Again, all of them getting sanctioned in China by the UK there for their roles. We'll see. I mean, again, you want to make sure you kind of have this in your contract, or if someone gets sanctioned, you're able to, get rid of that right away. So the NIS investment report, cybersecurity spend trends kind of taking place here. A new analysis along the EU is showing a significant job shortage of cybersecurity professionals in the nation. Cybersecurity investment did become a priority compared to last year. Overall, cybersecurity remained investment, averaging 9% of IT budgets with a median spend of 1.5 million euros. However, the data showing a clear pivot from expanding internal security teams towards enhanced technology stacks and outsourced services. The NIS2 implementation is essential but difficult for many organizations, and the supply chain exposure is rising in the EU, as well as talent gaps. So many talent gaps. They're relying, something the report won't tell you is they're relying on outsourcing because they don't have the talent in-house in Europe. And that's significant for the Europeans. Significant. Finally, a 22-year-old California resident pled guilty to RICO conspiracy charges this week after being accused by the DOJ of buying homes and laundering money on behalf of a criminal gang that stole crypto through social engineering schemes. Evan Tangman became the 9th person to plead guilty as part of a wider Justice Department takedown of the criminal group known as the Social Engineering Enterprise. The group did gain access to databases of people with large amounts of crypto and either scammed them into providing access to their funds or broke into their homes and physically stole devices. Members of the groups were previously charged with stealing more than $263 million worth of crypto from a victim in D.C. The man has pled guilty. So another guy bites the dust there. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern to wrap up this week here of December. So go check that out. Check out CyberHubPodcast.com. Again, our latest article, the part 2 of our subscription squeeze article is up right now at CyberHubPodcast.com. You can also get all of our content there exclusively on Saturday and Sunday. That's when we release our articles. So go check that out. Until then, have a great rest of your day, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. And most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.